fund at the Community Foundation back in 2018. And so now it has some structure and a board, and it is now a program under KCRF. We have some formatting issues here, but this was just a snapshot of some projects. I think y'all got the short version. That's okay. So KCRF, if CUTS was focusing on trails, the River Foundation is focusing on protecting and enhancing the Guadalupe River and the entire watershed. And so the way that we do that is through partnerships with our local river stewards like UGRA and the Riverside Nature Center, but also bringing in regional and state partners like Parks and Wildlife and Hill Country Alliance, so that we're all working together on a bigger vision to protect the corridor and the entire watershed in Kerr County. And so KCRF has developed, right now we're tracking 29 different projects that we are either leading or providing a supporting role to. And what we're going to focus on today is just a couple of those projects that are mostly relevant to the city of Kerrville. So we do have a board member, Clint Carter. He's become quite famous in the recovery efforts for his GIS talents. He is an aquatic ecologist at the Bandera County River Authority and Groundwater District. He also is very proficient in ArcGIS software. And so he has used the GIS format to develop some apps that serve a lot of purposes. And one of them is to analyze and assess. So look at what was the damage of the flood and then the follow-up cleanup. What are the areas that were most impacted? What are the areas that were relatively spared? To develop a restoration priority index. And that kind of informs and guides the restoration partners as they select projects that are most impactful for river restoration. Another benefit of the GIS program is another channel for just regular citizens to get involved with restoration activities. For those folks who don't want to or cannot physically dig holes and plant trees or get on their hands and knees and spread seeds and plant baby grasses, this is something that connects them to the efforts, specifically through photo monitoring. And so one of these GIS-based apps allows people and encourages people to go out to the river, go out to a creek anywhere in Kerr County, and take photos of a site. Take a photo downstream, upstream, left bank, right bank, and then load it into this portal, and then go back the next month or the next quarter to that same site and collect those same photos again. All of those photos go into a central database, and they're available to the public. They're available to our restoration partners, again, to inform them of restoration progress as they develop their own progress or their own projects. And then we have the Adopt a River Trail program, and this is a major partnership with the city of Kerrville that we launched earlier this year. Again, several intentions of the Adopt a River Trail program. Number one is to enhance the ecological function of riparian areas of the Guadalupe River, those that were impacted by the flood. And again, riparian areas are those. It's a very small zone that occurs along riverbanks and creek banks. It's a very important function to watershed health. It also, again, connects volunteers to hands-on projects close to the river and along the river trail. It gives them ownership of this beloved asset that is the river trail. And it hopefully kind of sets the stage for this idea of an expansion of public-private partnerships that allows more hands on the river trail to help the city maintain that river trail, enhance that river trail, and someday expand the river trail. So we started with a 1 mile section. Again, we presented this back in February, but it's a 1 mile section split into 5 parts. It starts at the G Street trailhead and basically follows the 1 mile extension that was most recently constructed to Schreiner University. And then we've also, since our February presentation this spring, we added a 6th section. This is at Francisco Lemos Bridge. Hello. And it goes upstream. And so this is behind the Riverside Nature Center and behind Lowry Park. This was adopted by KPUB earlier this year. So we've already added a section, which means we've added additional landowners that we coordinate with. So this is a critical stakeholder because, as y'all know, the river trail only includes a very narrow easement and oftentimes will transect private property. And so we need to work with those private property owners so that there's no access issues, so that we have our permission to plant trees and do other work on their property. And so the ones in green are newly added since February. Barbara Burton is the first property owner upstream from Lowry Park, and she is quite the community activist in that part of town and has engaged a lot of neighbors to be a part of this project as well. And then Riverside Nature Center, I put sorta in there because they're such an organic, natural partner and have been since we started recovery efforts that we actually haven't done a formal agreement with them. So we need to do that, but they still are very much landowner partners in this project. So our volunteer groups, same volunteer groups that we started out with those first 5 sections. And again, we've added KPUB. So these are the volunteer groups that have adopted each of those 6 sections. And their role is to show up, work with us and our restoration partners to develop a plan for their section of river trail. And that plan can include invasive species removal, additional plantings, and then of course the maintenance of those plantings, and then additional enhancements to the land on either side of the river trail within their section. Same list of stewardship partners that we started out with. We're adding San Antonio Botanical Garden. Of course, they have their huge trees initiative, which has gotten a lot of traction, a lot of publicity, a lot of funding. And it's a pretty narrow focus, but a very broad scope to plant tens of thousands of trees within the 30-mile corridor of the river in Kerr County. And so we are partnered with them because if you have a plan to plant tens of thousands of trees, you're going to need a lot of help to do that, not only on the front end, but on the maintenance and monitoring end. And so we've connected them already with some of our volunteer groups and incorporated their plan into the Adopt a River Trail program. So early on, we wanted to identify challenges so that we stay ahead of them. This is what we presented back in February as the challenges that we're facing. This is a photo that at the time was our irrigation method. So it was a little 10-foot trailer with a 500-gallon water tank that we would just drag all over the place and then use gravity feed to water our newly planted trees. So we've made a lot of progress in addressing these challenges. The irrigation system has had a major upgrade. We had a flatbed 1-ton truck donated to us. We purchased a tank and then a 12-foot trailer with 5,000-pound axles, which allows us to carry a total of 2,250 gallons in our nurse truck trailer combination. We use that nurse truck to keep full 500-gallon site tanks that we've installed at all of our planting sites at all of these sections. And then once a week, we have a volunteer that fills up this nurse truck and keeps those site tanks full so that our volunteers have water on demand. And a lot of times they're using gravity feed and hoses from those full tanks to keep their newly planted plants irrigated. For deer, we recognized especially early on that deer were going to be a major problem. We're essentially planting a buffet for these hungry critters that didn't have a lot to eat on after the flood. The natural recovery of plants has been exceptional this spring, up and down the corridor. And so that has taken some of the pressure off of these new plants that we've intentionally installed. And then we are continuing our trapping project with our partners, focusing right now on axis, exotic axis deer. We are still working with Matt Welch and the San Antonio Botanical Garden on improved nursery and grower practices to grow out plants that are restoration ready, which is different than retail ready. These are plants that need to survive real world stressful conditions. And that's not something that most growers want to do. And so Matt and the team at San Antonio Botanical Garden, along with Parks and Wildlife and Schreiner University, are working on a project to build a satellite nursery on Schreiner University campus that's geared towards growing out these restoration plants for all of these partners. Volunteer stamina is a very real challenge. We have quite a few older folks that are a part of these volunteer organizations, and so we are working with them to tap younger resources and an expansion of that volunteer base. Boy Scouts, Young Life, church groups, so that's going well. And then we want to make sure that we're aware of the challenge of landowner transitions. If one of our landowners along a section of adopted river trail sells, what is the procedure in our process for easing that transition? We've already seen that happen one time. And we're very happy to report that it was an easy move. We did receive a $150,000 grant from the Community Foundation for this project, and I'm going to go over financials in the next slide. That was an early challenge that we wanted to address. And then coordination among all the groups. We are a very active member of the Long-Term Recovery Group, River Working Group. And those regular meetings have been very valuable in keeping all of these restoration partners on the same page. So of the $150,000 that we got for this grant, to date, in the last 6 months, we've planted over 250 containerized trees as part of the Adopt a River Trail program. These don't count the whips that were planted. Those were cuttings from sycamore and other trees off-site that we just put in the ground near the river. Doesn't count those. That numbered close to 2,000. And then we planted over 1,200 what we think of as riparian anchors and pollinator species. These are your grasses, smaller plants that we put next to the river's edge. And then hundreds of pounds of seeds. We estimate roughly 1,500 man-hours. All of these are pretty conservative estimates. If you combine all of the volunteer hours across the 6 sections, it's about that to date. And when I put on my landscape contractor hat and I look at, well, this is the plant material that we've installed, this is the man-hours that installed it and maintained it to date, we're roughly looking at a value of $75,000 worth of work that we've only spent about $7,000 on. And that's not because we are great at stretching a dollar. I don't want to take away from that, but this is more of a testament to the value of collaboration with our restoration partners. A lot of this material we were able to get for free to us through other grants. And of course, all of that is volunteer hours. And so we've made quite an impact for not much money. That allows that grant to stretch out much further than we first expected. Another cool perk is research and application. And so one example is the Texas Master Naturalists who adopted Section 1 of the River Trail kind of took it on themselves as they're thinking through this process. If we're planting trees, what is the best way to keep those trees from getting browsed by deer and maybe hogs in other areas of the watershed? And so they created a trial where they identified 8 different tree protection methods, and then they used those methods on the trees that they've been installing, and then they're evaluating all of those methods so that they can come up with results that they can then share with the public and other restoration partners. And this will be very, very critical for San Antonio Botanical Garden. If they're investing millions of dollars in tens and tens of thousands of trees, they're going to need a proven method to protect those new trees from herbivory. And so this group has taken it on themselves to provide that data and that research for them. And so we want to keep expansion in mind. We want to stay aspirational, ambitious. We'll do that through partnerships. And we want to keep this idea of what is the value of the river trail? It's not just for recreation. Thousands of people love to use that for that purpose, but it also has multiple purposes. And so how can we utilize those purposes to improve the health of the Guadalupe River and improve the overall quality of the watershed? And how do we expand the river trail system to do that? So I want to leave y'all with two photos. This is a photo that was taken in December of 2025. This is on Section 3, so it's about halfway between G Street and Schreiner University, looking at the Guadalupe River. To give you a reference, the big building in the upper right section of the screen is the movie theater on Bandera Highway, and then one of the assisted living homes to the left of it. So keep your eye on that as we toggle to the next photo that was taken 6 months later. And that is our recovery. We would love to take credit for this, of course, but this is a testament to the healing, to the power of the river to heal itself. And so all of that scouring, all of that compaction, all of that scraping, the river was still able to heal itself through supplemental efforts of projects like the Adopt a River Trail program. So the last message is the river is healing. The river is healing itself, but it's also healing us as we process the trauma and move on and decide how we rebuild after the flood. And thank you very much for your continued support for this project. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Jeremy?
Thank you for doing this, and I've always known before July 4th how invested you are in Mother Nature. So thank you so much. And I have to say, our son was here over the weekend, had not been here since the 4th, and I tried to show him where it was really bad, and then I started looking at it, and it was like, it's recovered so much. It's not as bad as it was, and I kept trying to tell Kevin, but it was. But yay, it's not. So I really, it was pointed out by him to me a lot how much better it looks. So
It's good news.
yeah,
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
I do. Jeremy, I'm going to echo what Delane said and say thank you for everything that you've done. And every morning I go to the office, I see one of your water tanks on where Lowry turns into Guadalupe Street sitting there. So, but I've got 3 questions, if you don't mind, please, sir. Have you had any pushback from homeowners or anybody on the river, property owners, that just say, we don't want you doing this on our property? Has anybody, I don't know why they would, but has anybody pushed back on you?
0.
You said there's a nursery that's possibly going to go at Schreiner. What are you going to, native grasses to plant or just trees or combination?
It'll be a combination, and it'll serve multiple purposes. So one of those purposes is a lot of the grasses, the native grasses that you see growing along the river banks, aren't available in the nursery trades, right? Retail nursery trades. They're just not, they don't have a landscape quality to them. They have a very important ecological quality to them, but they're just not available. So we can go collect those seeds and grow them out and then have a local source for that material. So that allows us to expand the number of species and, the biodiversity along the river. The second is part of the trees initiative is to collect seed and then replant, the saplings that come from those seeds very close to where those seeds were collected. If they have a local, a satellite nursery that's closer to the source, that cuts down on drive times, it cuts down on, all of that transport. And so it makes their system a little more efficient. And then the success that we saw through this kind of experimental live staking project where we would go find sycamores and walnuts and cypress trees in areas that weren't impacted and just literally snip off branches. All of those species that naturally occur near water, near flowing, water bodies have regenerative qualities. You snap them off, and we've seen this all over the place. When they snap off, they just regrow right back from the stumps, right? And so you can literally cut them, and with just very minor modifications, put them in a hole in the ground, in a wet hole, and they will regenerate as a tree. We had a really high success rate in the trials that we did this winter. And so if we grew stock close by where we can just go and take cuttings from, that would be really beneficial, where we don't have to get on private property or access ranches or stuff. So that would be another. So we're looking at a lot of different benefits of this nursery for a lot of different projects.
My last one for you, sir. We had a little water workshop last week, and I was standing there with a UGRA board member, and a young lady came up and goes, I would like to see native grasses planted back on the riverbank to help with filtration and erosion control. And I said, I'm pretty sure that's being done right now, but that is the case, correct? Y'all are trying to plant native grasses, and it's
Yes, sir.
okay.
All native to Kerrville and Kerr County.
That's what we tried to convey, but sometimes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Jeremy, you're doing great work. I really appreciate that. I mean, it's a big job, and you're rounding up the resources and the people. So I really appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your work. If you mentioned this, I apologize for coming in just a little bit late. When you're doing your irrigation, where is that water coming from?
We have a temporary permit through TCEQ to pull water from the river during high flow conditions. When flow goes down and that's no longer available to us, we're going to the wastewater treatment plant, and we're using the treated wastewater to fill our trucks.
Thank you.
Good question. Thank you. I did not cover that in the beginning, so thank you for asking it.
Yes, he did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is 2B. Mr. Dixon.
Mayor, Council, thank you so much for having me today. My name is Austin Dixon. I am with the Community Foundation of the Texas Hill Country. Councilmember Smith, it's good to see you in your new seat. Congratulations and welcome. Thank you to the city staff also for making time for me on the workshop today. I'd like to share today a little bit of an update on what the Community Foundation has been up to over the past year. A year ago, when floodwaters rose across Kerr County and the Hill Country, it changed lives forever. There were 137 precious lives that were lost across our region, and 119 of them here in Kerr County. Many families lost loved ones, many lost homes, and many lost businesses, and some lost a sense of community or worried that our community might not be the same again. Like many families across Kerr County, my family was personally changed forever by the flood. But this afternoon, I would like not to relive what happened a year ago, but to answer a simple question for you and for the public, which is, from the Community Foundation's perspective, 1 year later, where are we? And where we are today is that people are home, people are healing, and the community is strengthening. And the title of my presentation is Recovery is Real. Before I go into any details about what the Community Foundation is up to, I think that Jeremy is a really good example of everything I share today. While some of it is detail, a lot of it is very high level. As a foundation, we make grants to nonprofit organizations who do the actual work of recovery. And Jeremy described the Kerr County River Foundation as a grantee partner of ours. And I've said before, and I'll say again, that when I say the word grantee partner, the word is insufficient for what is being described. The work that Jeremy and all of those volunteers at the Kerr County River Foundation are doing is heroic work. It's generational work. And it's not a grantee partner. It's something else entirely. It's a community hero. And I think Jeremy is a great illustration of so much of what I'll talk about today is a collection of stories of community heroes. The first challenge in any disaster is information. Who to call, Where do people need to go? What help exists? What steps come next? And that is why, as I reported to you in previous presentations, rebuildker.org was launched at the beginning of August. This was a central hub where survivors can register themselves, volunteers can find information, nonprofits can apply for funding, and people can make a donation. A community-wide recovery effort only works when everyone is working from the same information. Rebuild Kerr is that common starting point. Last time I was in this chamber on January 13th, we had 488 households who had registered themselves as a case on Rebuild Kerr. We also had at that time 32 case managers managing a load of about 20 cases each. All case managers are local people who live in Kerr County. They're employed by local organizations and they are paid a full-time salary by the Community Foundation. To date, the Community Foundation and its team of case managers, which are just epically heroic people, have served 650 cases registered through Rebuild Kerr, of which 138 the case is closed and all their needs have been met. Early in the recovery, we made a commitment that we would not make any decision at the foundation on funding based on any kind of assumption. We would make decisions based on data and analysis. Through the countywide needs assessment through Rebuild Kerr, as I mentioned, hundreds of households shared what they were experiencing. These are a few screenshots just to give you a flavor of some of the data that we have through Rebuild Kerr. But the results were clear. Housing was the single largest need that all residents said that they were in need of, and it was the long-term challenge. And we see this across disasters in the United States. Mental health needs were significant. Businesses registered their need to survive and what comes next. Many community institutions were worried about reopening and recovery, and this data became our roadmap. Curiously, in the bottom left-hand corner is a screenshot of the final numbers that FEMA did for the Texas Hill Country floods, giving on average $5,548 to flood victims. This public dashboard is on rebuildker.org. It's publicly accessible to anybody. It's been there since August. It's transparent, it measures progress, and it helps us adjust strategy. And I encourage all citizens to go to Rebuild Kerr and go to the bottom of the page where you say community data, and you can look at all of these charts and see for yourself. But this data has not replaced compassion. It's actually directed compassion. As our framework has developed over time, I've come twice to this body, the first time early on to talk about emergency response, which was granting $15 million to organizations that I've already previously reported on and is on rebuildker.org. But we then transitioned to long-term recovery, and our areas of focus are here on the screen. After emergency needs, it's housing, it's mental health, it's community and culture, and long-term needs. When we say community and culture, we mean making grants that help define what our community looks and feels like. In essence, what makes our community. Parks, playgrounds, small business, ecological restoration, as Jeremy described, schools, and other needs. Specifically, out of that Community and Culture Fund, the foundation has made grants that directly benefit the city of Kerrville. And I have a handout that I would share, but I'd like to share a few of those with those that might be watching a recording of this. We were honored to make our first grant to the city of Kerrville very early on for $10,000 to the KPD to buy dress blues so that they could go to public events and sporting events throughout the state of Texas and represent the city of Kerrville and Kerr County at memorial events all last summer. They've got these amazingly beautiful formal uniforms, American flags, and represented Kerrville well, and we were honored to be able to make that grant. We also made a $40,000 grant to redo the electric infrastructure on Tranquility Island. We recently, just as recently as of yesterday, made a over $10,000 grant to the CVB to repair those murals underneath the Louise Hayes Bridge. We granted $200,000 to the Kerrville CVB for an 18-month planning grant for a public memorial. One of the requests from the Arts and Culture Working Group of the Long-Term Recovery Group was that we need a plan for some kind of memorial, that we don't need to just riff it and we need some kind of design. And oftentimes, if we're going to go out and ask for substantive funding from some outside source, like the state, for example, we're going to need to have a plan. And the community art program housed at the CVB is an excellent vehicle. They have demonstrated, similar with the public safety building and others, that they are able to get community buy-in, community voice, artistic expertise, and come up with exactly the right way that Kerrville can be represented. So we were honored to make that grant. In January, we made a $400,000 investment in Kerr EDC to support tourism promotion in our community, buying advertising and promoting to national audiences that Kerrville and Kerr County are open for business. We're a wonderful place to visit, and please come patronize our businesses and our community. We also made a $460,000 grant to the city of Kerrville to replace Camp Meeting Creek Bridge, which I think you're going to talk about later today, as well as replace all trash cans, park benches, and pet waste stations along the river trail. And in April, we shared publicly the $8.4 million investment in Louise Hayes Park. It's the second largest grant the Community Foundation has made in this entire recovery to the city of Kerrville to help get Louise Hayes Park back online. That grant will pay for a brand new splash pad, a playground, all parking infrastructure, and a new dog park. We are especially grateful to the vision and leadership and, frankly, the sweat equity of the Kerr County River Foundation. Jeremy mentioned a $150,000 investment from the Community Foundation into that organization's work. And before I knew he was speaking tonight, I was going to simply point out that that investment is not only incredible and amazing, but it's benefiting city properties. Lowry Park already looks great. And that's right outside the door of the Riverside Nature Center, adjacent to the river trail, and an amazing asset. And I was going to shout out KPUB, who is planting, watering, monitoring, which is also a part of the city. In all, $10 million has been granted to the city of Kerrville thus far, $10 million of $82 million that has been granted in the past year. The reason for all of these areas of emphasis, housing, mental health, community, and culture, is that all of these make up a life. And housing and mental health and businesses and the river itself is our life in Kerrville. It is our life together, and a healthy recovery requires all of it. Our framework for every decision we have made has been guided by three priorities. First is that choice, livelihood, and local capacity. For choice, people recover differently. All of you sitting up on the dais and all of us in this room know firsthand that everybody and every family has not had the same circumstance after this flood. No two families have the same experience, and people must be offered choice. Second, livelihood. Our community cannot recover if they lose jobs, if businesses close, or if the local economy does not support them. And third, local capacity. We have learned in this recovery that local people can solve local problems. Those principles have shaped every major investment of the $82 million that we have granted thus far in the community. You might have noticed that we have invested locally. We have not brought in an army of workers from elsewhere. We have hired local, and we have built up the capacity of local organizations. One of the most important lessons of this disaster is that there is no single path home. Some families could repair their home. Others had to rebuild, and we are thankful to Hunt Preservation Society, All Hands and Hearts, and our beloved Habitat for Humanity for their hard work and their expertise. Many families needed an RV. Others needed a manufactured home, and we have made significant investments in Episcopal Relief and Development and the West Texas Diocese of the Episcopal Church to manage that process for us. Some could not return at all and need down payment assistance to purchase another home. We have been so fortunate to partner with the Texas State Affordable Housing Corporation out of Austin for this expertise. 20 survivor families have gotten down payment assistance thus far in the recovery, and 6 are Kerrville residents. The first 3 residents who got down payment assistance were a sheriff's deputy, a middle school teacher and cheer coach, and a Kerrville firefighter. These are people who make Kerrville and Kerr County what it is. Other families have already rebuilt for themselves, and they simply need reimbursement. We also offer a construction reimbursement program to pay those expenses. And some households simply need help meeting immediate, what we call unmet needs. Medical equipment, testing for a well, replacing a well, help with a driveway, or something else. And rather forcing everyone into one program and saying this is recovery and this is what you get, we have built multiple pathways through choice. And I would also like to mention that the Community Foundation also paid property taxes for 108 qualified flood survivor households who sought disaster relief formally from Kerr County. We mailed them a letter telling them their 2025 obligation had been paid, and one of the most meaningful appointments of this recovery was going to Bob Reeb's office at the courthouse to be able to hand him a check for those obligations. Of those 108 households, 31 were City of Kerrville residents. 1 year later, we can begin measuring outcomes rather than activity or busyness. Over 100 households have already returned to permanent, safe, stable housing. We had a press conference earlier today where we announced those results to the general public. About 1/3 of all households live in the Kerrville city limits. There are many more households that are actively moving through the process. This morning, on June 23rd, in the city of Kerrville, 74 households, 74, comprised of 150 individuals, woke up in temporary housing, an apartment, a house, or an Airbnb in the city limits, with their rent and utilities fully paid for by the Community Foundation. Survivor families have this available to them for up to 12 months while they take a breath and figure out their next steps for their family. These numbers that I'm sharing with you represent families and Kerrville citizens, families who have a path forward, families who are home. This is what success looks like, and I'd like to introduce you to a few of them. Richard is a retired educator and coach who has lived in his beloved Kerrville for 20 years. He lost nearly everything in the flood, including the RV that he lived in. The only thing that remained was the loan payment on the RV. And through our grantee partner, we have not only paid off his loan, but we have also gotten him a new RV. And in this picture is my colleague Jane Zirkle, Richard's amazing case manager, and Reverend David Payne, who came over to bless the new home. Richard House moved in to his new RV in December. The Dixon family, no relation, although I wish I was related to Gary and Annette, have been married 65 years. They were pulled from waist-deep water by someone they knew only as Arnie. They had seconds to decide what they were going to grab from their home, and they were unable to grab anything. Habitat for Humanity repaired their home entirely. Annette picked out the colors, and it looks exactly as she wanted. Gary is a proud military veteran, and the Dixons are proud Kerrville residents and don't want to live anywhere else. People of all ages are beginning to imagine their futures again. Priscilla and Tabor live over near Barb's Flower Barn. They bought their first home to grow their family, and they moved in April of 2025. Priscilla told me she never imagined the river at the end of the street would ever be a problem. They moved back home in March. Every family has a different story. The Cole family's home was completely destroyed. Here is a picture of them with their grandchild and their case manager, Brittany Lehman. Through hard work of a local realtor and a local lender, they have received down payment assistance to purchase a new home, staying put in the city of Kerrville, where their roots and their family are. This is results. This is stability, and the opportunity to begin a new chapter of their lives and the city that they love and call home. This is how we are measuring recovery. John McClellan was driving across the river. He was driving across Limo Street Bridge when floodwaters rose and washed his car away. He fortunately broke out of his window, crawled out of the car, and clung to a tree where his life was saved. John and I know each other. We have volunteered together for many years, and this story is particularly important to me. The Community Foundation was able to pay off the car note on the new car that was replaced, and John is also an artist, and this is a painting that he auctioned off at the Furball this year. He loves that painting, and he loves that picture of himself, and encouraged me to use it with you this evening. Housing is not enough. A community will not recover if businesses do not recover. To date, approximately $15 million has been invested by the Community Foundation in business recovery. This is one of the largest investments proportionally in small business in American disaster history. 10% of all funds raised have been granted to support small business in Kerr County. More than 600 businesses have received assistance thus far, and our largest grantee partner, as you already heard, that term is woefully insufficient to their work. The LIFT Fund has received $12 million from the Community Foundation. With those funds, they have provided grants up to $50,000, not repaid, to businesses in our community. And as of today, they've offered 43 loans up to $500,000 at 0% interest. The interest rate is brought down to zero by foundation dollars. These investments have helped local businesses reopen, retain employees, and continue serving the community. And it's working. Every single month, sales tax in this community has increased since last summer. A stable economy helps families, it helps governments, and it helps our quality of life. Some impacts of the flood, however, are not visible, and the emotional impacts of trauma have emerged months later, and these also require action. Support today includes school-based services, grief counseling, mental health navigation, provider training and support, and work with first responders. We have funded the Children's Bereavement Center for multiple years, New Hope Counseling Center, the Ecumenical Center, the Hummingly Foundation, and many more. We have made grants to school districts for mental health. We have provided mental health support to camp leaders this summer in Kerr County. We have underwritten the costs for mental health aides for counselors at West Kerr County camps this summer. We have also underwritten the costs of mental health care for families who have lost a loved one anywhere in Texas. I will note that our Family Mental Health Care Fund, which is administered by the Meadows Mental Health Policy Institute, has seen a dramatic uptick in calls and needs for mental health navigation, as well as reimbursement in the past 3 weeks. We have also granted $600,000 to the Hill Country MHDD to make sure their emotional support center, which is on the first floor of One Shriner Center on Water Street, is open 7 days a week, starting July 1st, which is next Wednesday, to make sure that anyone in our community can go with no appointment and talk with a licensed clinician on the mental health needs that they might have. Additionally, the Kerrville Police Department requested support from the Community Foundation for a mobile mental health care app for its officers and their families, which is one of the first mental health grants that we made early this year. Healing takes much longer than rebuilding, but it's every bit as important. One of the things we've learned in this disaster is if we rebuild structures and we don't do anything for people, then our community is not truly home. Community is also important, and recovery also means restoring places that create it. Little League fields have reopened. Ingram Little League threw its first pitch on March 21st. I was there with the Astros and many others. There was over 1,000 people there that day. The foundation granted $515,000 to make sure that that project was successful. The Dietert Center opened in October. The Riverside Nature Center opened the same. Guadalupe Park in Kerrville has a ribbon cutting next month that I will be at, Jay. The foundation granted $375,000 to make sure that project was successful. A strong community is one where people have places to gather, connect, volunteer, and rebuild relationships. The picture here is of volunteers at the San Antonio Botanical Garden that are cleaning Kerr County cypress seeds. They have over 400,000 seeds at this point that they have collected. They are cleaned. They are planting them in a network of 25 nurseries across Central and South Texas. This will be a generational project to restore our river. We have also made a significant investment in the Hill Country Alliance, Councilman Harris, and they have distributed starting last fall pounds and pounds, thousands of pounds of native seed. And in fact, they, in partnership with Native American Seed Company through Community Foundation investment, have designed a specific seed mix called Riparian Mix, which is Kerr County native riparian seed mixes that is designed specifically for the 28 miles of our river. And we handed these out at an event at Austin PBS last month, and some of my teammates mistakenly told the crowd that they were wildflower seeds. So when those people go home and throw the seeds in their backyard, they're going to be surprised that eastern gamagrass and switchgrass start to grow. But hey, we can't be perfect. What we have learned is one of the most important decisions is to invest locally in this recovery and invest in local organizations when possible. Of the $82 million that we've granted so far, $75 million has been granted to local Kerr County organizations, Hunt Preservation Society, Light on the Hill, Habitat, and dozens more. These organizations know the community because they are our community. They are our people. Some economic models are suggesting that the grants that we have spent just in the past year have generated between $100 and $125 million in total economic activity in Kerr County through wages, construction costs, spending at local businesses, materials purchased locally, and workers hired from this community. After a year, several lessons have become clear. Recovery requires coordination. No single organization can do this alone. Local leadership is incredibly important in times like this, and perhaps most importantly, people closest to the problem are usually closest to their solutions. We have also learned that housing drives long-term recovery. When housing stabilizes, many other problems can then be easier solved. Data also improves our decision-making, and it helps us allocate resources effectively and fairly. But the strongest recovery tool we have seen is people helping other people, and Jeremy and his example is a testament to that. The work is not finished. Housing remains the foundation's top priority. Mental health will continue to be invested in and expand over many years. The Uvalde tragedy in 2022 is a disaster that the foundation has also had deep experience with. We are in year number 4 of that tragedy, and we are still investing in parks, play spaces, mental health, and other needs of that community. And I expect many years from now, we will be doing the same here for mental health. We will continue monitoring economic recovery efforts, and we will begin to focus on long-term readiness and resilience. Our goal is not just to put our community back together again, but build for the future. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce states that for every dollar we invest in preparedness for disaster, we save 13 in recovery dollars. So where are we 1 year later? We are not finished. Some families are waiting to come home. Some businesses are still waiting to recover. Many people and many families are still grieving. But progress is real, and people are home, and people are healing, and the community is strengthening. There are signs of recovery all around us every day. There are many reporters who are starting to visit our community to see what's changed in a year. And they ask me all the time, where can we see evidence of what's changed? And I say, look around you, because it's everywhere. Recovery is a long-term effort, and transparency and public engagement matter. That's why I would invite everyone here and everyone watching at home to visit rebuildkerr.org, where every grantee, every grant purpose, every dollar amount, as well as the rationale for grant making is listed on the website. We update it every single week. And before I close, I want to close with one final thought, is that a year ago, many people wondered whether Kerr County and Kerrville would recover. The scale of the loss was overwhelming. Challenges were unprecedented for our community, and the road ahead was uncertain. But today, 1 year later, our community is demonstrating what is possible when local people and local organizations and local leadership come together around a common purpose. There is not one organization that can take credit for any of this. And the pace of housing recovery that we have achieved in this county and in this community is one of the fastest ever documented in American history. And it happened because thousands of people have made a decision that we will bring everybody home. The story of Kerrville is not going to be defined by a flood. It will be defined by what happens next. Thank you so much for your time.
Questions?
Thank you, Austin. And by the way, the Community Foundation is, again, a second-year Water Street Festival sponsor. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Bringing people together.
It's a wonderful event, and we love opening up our courtyard for public art as well.
We look forward to it.
Thank you.
I just want to commend you and everybody. Austin, I know that I came to your office shortly after the tragedy last year because there were people saying that, well, they got to pay all this money back. And you helped me hopefully squash some of those rumors about how grants actually work and got it out there to everybody. But for everything that y'all are doing and continue to do for our community, I can't thank y'all and praise y'all enough. You talked a little bit about everything that's happening in the memorial.
Yes.
There was a wall that was beside the mayor's office for a while. Everything that was on that wall has been taken down and cleaned, and it's in the works. They were trying to get it done this year. I don't know if Callie Ernest has reached out and talked to y'all or requested a meeting with you, but that's going to be actually placed inside of an airtight plexiglass display, and it's going to be at the Point Theater up at the Hill Country Arts Foundation in Ingram. And it is permanent location, permanent. They want to have a dog park. They were trying to get it done within a year. Obviously, they couldn't do everything, but I just, if they reach out to you, that's one
Okay.
that should.
I've not spoken with them, but our investment in the community art program at the Kerrville CVB was really intended for that entity and all the people that it can rally together to have a community-wide conversation about memorialization as a topic and what makes sense for the community. And so I would encourage that group to connect and make sure all that aligns. We, the Community Foundation, are agnostic about memorialization. What we're passionate about is that community voice is a part of memorialization, and that's why our grant is for a planning grant to bring community voice to the table in whatever way the CVB and the community art program and the community in general see fit, and we have nothing to do with it at all. Similar, as I said, to art that was installed at the Public Safety Building, the murals down below, and some other projects that have happened through the community art program. It's just been a really excellent model of getting, like I said, expertise, but also community voice involved. Yeah,
Thank you again for everything.
sure. Thank you, Councilman.
Oh, what's been going on under your umbrella is nothing short of a miracle, so thanks very much for the
Thank you, Councilman.
hard work.
Echo everything they said. Thank you to you, your board, your team. I just applaud you for everything that y'all have done the last 11 and a half months.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you for everything. How can we, listening to a meeting you gave earlier this week, how can we aid you in that it is not the community foundation's job to fix everything, to fund everything?
I'll give the same answer I gave when I spoke to the county commission yesterday, which is I think it's the role of government, specifically local government officials, to advocate for state and federal resources that this community is owed, that there are certain grants that are available. There is money that flows from the federal government to the state of Texas through the General Land Office. The person who runs that office is our former state senator. I think that it is a long-term advocacy project to make sure that this community is treated fairly. And there are other communities that are going to compete and make cases and are already preparing and are already lined up for those funds. And my point that I made yesterday is that we as a community at large cannot depend on donors to fund fundamental obligations of government. And infrastructure and resilience and long-term planning, roads, bridges, warning systems, emergency management, other things that we need, we cannot expect the American donor, which is what the Community Foundation is. We're 141,000 donations from all over America. We can't expect the American donor to foot that bill. And it's also unsustainable. We have some estimates $1 billion problem of disaster, and the foundation raised $150 million, which is amazing, and the generosity of Americans, but it's woefully insufficient to what the need is. And the only way that that need is filled in the United States is through government action. It's never philanthropy. Philanthropy takes risks, it moves quickly, and everything that I presented today is the nimbleness and the speed with which philanthropy can move and can take risks and can jump in and solve problems. But larger systemic things that a community needs, like infrastructure grants or CDBG DR dollars, those are all things that our elected officials need. They have the power and the standing to make a strong case for. And that would be my request. And I am happy, and the foundation is happy to be a partner in advocating for those dollars. But I do think that you are well positioned to make that case really compellingly. That would be my request and encouragement.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you to you and your board and your working committees for all you've done and continue to do, and thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you.
We have no need to go into executive session, and so at 6 o'clock, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the city council workshop. Let's take about a 5-minute recess before the regular city council meeting.